I've been writing most of my life. I write everything, and in the last, God, it seems like forever now, I've been, for the first time ever, working on fiction. I'm an old newspaper man, old both in the sense of old and also former, and so a lot of my writing has been that direction of poetry. I specialize in essays, and so tonight I'm not going to read my fiction. I am going to read an essay. Given the tone of the evening, I hope that you appreciate this. I miss Mr. Rogers.
Me too.
Not that I knew the children's television icon personally, yet I, like millions, felt like I knew him. And more important, that he knew me every time I watched his show on PBS. He knew what I was thinking and feeling, what hurdles I had struggled to clear in my young life. And in that knowing, there was a special connection, a unique bond that made Fred Rogers a father or grandfather figure to everyone who grew up with his kind face, easy, just loud enough to be heard because there's no need to talk louder voice, and endearing childlike but not childish television pattern. Memories of Mr. Rogers tumbled through my brain recently after stumbling across a longish magazine article about him from 1998. The story led to a quick visit to YouTube. Suddenly, I was back in the neighborhood again. King Friday, Daniel Tiger, X the Owl, Mr. McFeely the Mailman, Lady Elaine, and all of Mr. Rogers' regular visitors and friends. I'm 48 years old. My own children are grown, and there are no grandkids yet. I haven't had reason to watch Mr. Rogers for decades, yet I knew every bit of it again through the magic of the internet. The design of his television home, the location of the fish tank in his kitchen, the words to the songs, the routine of him switching out his sport coat and shoes for a cardigan and slippers. But most of all, I remembered and felt again the comfort of a time, place that lacked chaos, confusion, sarcasm, anger, hurt, and cynicism. Sure, the real world continued to spin out of its myriad problems, even as Fred Rogers sang to his television children. But the real world didn't exist in the land of make-believe. The magazine article's author painted Fred Rogers as a man not only endowed with grace, but one who sought it from others, and in so doing exuded that same grace, filling the space around him with a sense of calm and peace and love. More so than his television program, I missed that air of peace that Fred Rogers wore like one of his sweaters. And I continue to miss it every day. Every time I read yet another story about some trauma or tragedy or terror that has yet again ripped the heart out of our real world. The truth is, the real world is a hard, cold, cruel place. Sadly, that's not new, nor is it unique to our times. What is new and unique, however, is the speed at which the world's pain and anxiety fly around and over and through us. Thanks to the 24-hour news cycle and the internet, our insatiable lust for judgment constantly produces envy, doubt, loathing, hatred, and covetousness faster than we can even consume it. We are pounded and pounded and pounded like nails into too hard wood by hammers of negativity and darkness and evil until we, or at least I, get physically ill. And just when it seems like we cannot take one more blow to the head, an old article about Mr. Rogers appears. Out of nowhere. Well, actually, on Facebook. A story about a man so pure and good-hearted and kind and empathetic and loving that it's easy to mock him. Even now, years after his death, he seemed literally too good to be true. And isn't that the saddest statement of all? That some, many, me, would tease and mimic and belittle a man for his sheer and utter goodness? I'm sure that Mr. Rogers wasn't perfect. This particular article did not accuse him of anything untoward. No screaming revelations of child molestation or skimming money from the PBS coffers or even keeping his iconic sweaters and slippers after the last of his 865 original episodes of his show. Still, he was human. Flawed like the rest of us, except that he was not. Fred Rogers, an ordained minister, asked and thanked people for praying for him because he knew that the act of praying infuses both the pray-or and the pray-e with spiritual power and life. Fred Rogers celebrated a child's wondrous capacity for mental invention and spiritual intervention. Fred Rogers knew the ability we all have, though few recognize it, much less use it, to heal a broken soul by joining hands and hearts, offering a hug, and just listening. Fred Rogers, who rose and went to bed early and never wasted a minute of his precious God-given time watching television, the very medium through which we came to know and love him, understood and valued the holy majesty inherent in silence, which creates and sustains peace. Fred Rogers' world wasn't much different than ours is today, but Fred Rogers was. And in losing this one man, who never weighed more than 143 pounds his entire life, our world lost a heavyweight of immense spiritual strength and compassion. It's not such a beautiful day in the neighborhood anymore. We live in a society that has made a cultural goddess out of a woman whose fame is as skimpy as the two tight dresses that cling to her oversized butt, whose celebrity is based on a strategically made and accidentally released sex tape. We could use a man who embodied goodness and godliness in everything we do.